All right, everybody. Welcome back to 18 Outdoors. Thanks everybody for watching. Today we're gonna get into a little soapbox stuff, but it's getting toward the end of the season. Season's winding down. A lot of people have had a good year, but we've had a lot of people that's kind of complaining. So we got a lot of internet, social media biologists, maybe, I don't know, deer professionals. But our special guest today here is Mr. Matt Brock, and if y'all don't know him, been a wildlife biologist for over 10 years.
Well, see, I graduated Mississippi State, and when was that? 2007. I worked for the state agency in Mississippi for 4 years, NWTF for about 9 months, in the state of Alabama for 10 months. I've been doing private consulting for the last 2 years. So
I'm doing real good at that. So.
Well, I think so.
But you've got a broad experience, of wildlife management, particularly deer, or generally everything.
Yep, a little bit of everything, but I really enjoy deer.
So, he was a biologist at Black Warrior Management Area for 4 years?
4.5 years.
4.5 years, so. And that's a cool place to be a biologist.
It is.
So,
yep.
Anyway, we're going to talk about the biggest thing we're going to talk about is everybody's into this thing about, can we do better? Can we grow monster bucks in Alabama consistently? What's the potential? Do we need to change rules and shorten season? A variety of stuff. And I wrote down a few things before we get too started or get too carried away. Is right now in Alabama we've got around 700 to 800,000 acres of public land, and 870 something million acres private. So when people get to thinking about what they want to try to do or change in Alabama as far as rules, hunting, period, you need to kind of think how that's going to affect private versus public. To me, the state gives us a basic guideline that what they kind of want you to do, but they leave it up to you to how you want to do it. So if we got a 5-month season, 3-month season, whatever, they're not telling you you gotta do specific things every day. You don't have to start gun hunting on private land to whenever you want to. You ain't got to hunt mornings, or you don't have to hunt evenings. You got control of that. And public land's a little bit different. It got specific things. And I remember years ago when they had a grassroots meeting, they asked a bunch of hunters, I don't know if it's 15 years ago, whatever, what was your goals that you wanted to do? Do you want to shoot big deer, or you want to see a bunch of deer, or what? And it was overwhelmingly, everybody wanted to shoot big deer. So they set up this big plan, put out more doe days, broaden the season a little bit, I think. And after about 3 or 4 years, people was having a daggum fit. Saying, they're shooting too many does, they're doing this, we ain't seeing the deer, whatever. So they changed some of it. But people didn't really realize the state, they just give you some guidelines. They didn't make you do anything. They didn't make you shoot does. They didn't make you shoot 8 points or spikes or whatever. So we're going to get into that a little bit. And Matt's got a pretty good idea of what the potential, Alabama has. I got an idea, but I'm not a biologist. I just got 40 years or so experience of what hunting I've seen and what I've done and what few out-of-state places I've been. So again, then I've done another little research. They changed, used to, you could shoot a buck a day the whole season. Some places 2 does a day the whole season. So, and if you was in a deer management program, you had other things you could do, certain tags and so. But in 2007 is when they changed the buck limit back to 3. One of them got to have 4 points on one side. So after that year, before 2007, I went through the Buck Matcher's record book and looked at the deer that grossed over 200 inches. Okay, and I come up with 24. So roundabout, you can say 24 bucks. From the 50s or 40s all the way to 2007. After they changed that rule, 6 is all I can find, and that's including the 200-inch Fayette County So this year's buck. So everyone say, well, not everybody scores them. Well, not everybody scored them before that either. So it's kind of relevant numbers. So why that is, who knows? I mean, Matt's going to give us a little insight on it, sure. But it's just, to me, you got to think about that. Alabama's different than other states. And they're going to say, well, one of the biggest things is we're shooting too many bucks. Well, back then you could shoot whatever you want to. I got a pile of spikes I shot with heck, but I shot 2 of the biggest deer I ever shot was back then, and my brother's 180 was back before they changed these rules and stuff, but it was wildlife management areas, which is a little bit different, than the private land. But so we're gonna get into Matt, talking to him, and I'm gonna ask a few questions. Let's say, what do you think the Alabama's potential is for it? But what can we consistently say? We can kill this every year. Can we kill 5 200-ish a year in Alabama? Can we kill 20 180s, or what do you think the actual potential is in Alabama?
Well, if you look at antler development across all age classes, it's in a bell curve. So if you just let's just say you take a 100 antler deer that are 4 years of age, and you're going to have a few over here, let's say 10 to 15 that are 75 to 100 inches. And you're going to have about 80% of them that are going to fall somewhere between 110 and 125 to 30 inches. Then you're going to have a very few that are going to be 140 and above. So those true giant, like these 200-inch deer that we're talking about, are going to be rare regardless of what the regulations are. Alabama is greatly limited by soil fertility. Now, we have some very fertile soils in places, but if you try to compare our soils to the quality of soil, say in the Midwest or the Mississippi Delta, we fall very short. Soils grow big deer, and age class, that grows big deer too. I tell people, don't get caught up on genetics in a free ranging herd. One, there's nothing you can do about it. The genetics that are there are there. And you've also, like I said, got this bell curve of possibilities. So although, you may have some deer with poor genetics, you've probably got an equal amount of deer with great genetics. And you've got a lot of deer with mid-grade genetics bringing up the middle.
That kind of gets into another thing, is the cull buck.
Right.
So there, and in theory, the way I understand it, you cannot, if you shot every cull buck you could find, you wouldn't be able to eliminate them because of the does. The does actually part of it.
Does carry part of the genetics, but also there's been some interesting studies on genetics and inheritability. So let's look at, a deer that carries tremendous tine length, let's say 12 to 14 inch tines. He may not carry that trait to his offspring, or some of his offspring may carry that trait and others not. So it's not always predictable. I've heard people tell me, well, I killed a great big old buck 10 years ago, and I'm still killing some of his grandkids today because they get, no, you probably not. You can't look at a deer and say he's related to that one. Not in a free ranging herd.
Wow.
There's been too many studies that have disproven that. So as far as just average antler potential on a mature deer, then most of Alabama, which, most of the areas that I work are going to be from the Black Belt north. So let's just say most of central Alabama, North Alabama, an average mature buck at 4 to 5 years of age is going to be in the 120 to 130 class.
And that's a good deer.
That's a really good deer. I tell people all the time, if you have a mature deer that's 120 in our state, he's a good deer. If you have a 130 or better, he's a great deer. And a 140 or better is a deer of a lifetime for most hunters.
Right. When I started changing my tactics or my style of hunting, I was 40 or 41 when I killed my first big deer. So, and since then, now I'm fixing to be 59. I've killed 5 bucks total. That's over 130, so over 135, and that, to me that's a real good thing. But I've spent a lot of time in the woods.
You spend a lot of hours in the woods to do that.
And I know a lot of people that spend a lot of hours in the woods also. That's similar or maybe a little bit less than people, but I don't see how, from what and what mammoth areas I hunt, there's only specific mammoth areas I even care about thinking about trying to trophy hunt or whatever, because from everything I've seen, a lot of places a 115 is a daggone nice one.
Oh yeah, you get down in areas of the lower coastal plain in South Alabama, 110 to 15 inch deer is a very nice deer.
So, but it's all, but so you're saying, say genetics, and then the food stuff, and that the land producing that, and that's got to do like more native browse than all this other stuff that people's putting out.
Yeah, so deer are going to choose native vegetation over feed the majority of the time. Okay, deer select certain plant species or certain nutrients at certain times of the year because they know what they need. Now, I'm not against supplemental feeding, but you're not going to change a deer herd's potential or increase that potential by pouring feed to them in a free-ranging deer herd. Now, it can be different in an enclosure. People who have high fences, those deer are limited in their native vegetation intake anyway, especially if you have an overpopulation. So you can pour the nutrition to those deer, and they're going to consume it, and they're going to benefit from it. But most of the studies that have been conducted on free-ranging deer, you're looking at a 1 to 2% gain in body mass or antler development per age class. The amount of money that you spend on feed, to me, that's not worth it. I'd rather put my resources into habitat management, because if you think about how much time out of a 24-hour period a deer is at your feeder versus how much time it's eating native vegetation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long to figure out they're eating native vegetation the majority of the time.
So, another thing people get in and say, well, we're shooting too many bucks.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the limit, 3 buck limit in Alabama. So what is your take on that? I got kind of my take, but
I have seen since, and I feel very strongly about this, Michael, when we extended the season in areas that it really wasn't justified, the areas that have November, December, and January breeding, then we give them 10 more days to hunt them in February. I think the combination of that extension plus the legalized baiting plus the technological advances in cell phone cameras or cell cameras, I think that's a very dangerous combination, because like you were stating that, there's always been big deer killed in Alabama. And even in the days when we were running dogs and killing everything that moved, some of those deer slipped through the cracks because killing any deer in those days was a random occurrence. You didn't select a certain deer to shoot. You just shot whatever you saw. So some of them made it through. Now, with the extended season and the baiting and the cell cameras, we're high grading the herd. I'm not going to say we're killing too many bucks, but we're killing all the higher end, the higher quality bucks at younger ages.
I want you to kind of define that high grade and exactly what that means.
So what that means is, per age class, as a general hunting population, we're removing the best deer with the best potential at younger ages because they have greater antler development. Yeah. And what it's leading to long term, I feel like, is an age class of deer. We're still going to have older age class individuals in the herd, but their antler scores, I think you're going to start seeing that go down, because most folks are not going to pass a 130-inch 3-year-old deer. Now, 20 years ago, that 130-inch 3-year-old had just as good a chance as anything at slipping through the cracks and making it to 4 or 5. Now he don't, because he's on 6 different cameras on 5 different properties, and somebody's going to hunt him till they kill him.
That's a pretty good point. One of my points is about, or thoughts about the 3 buck limit. They're griping about that, want to change it. I wouldn't have a problem with the non-residents, getting less tags than we get. I don't think, because like if we go to another state, we're getting 1 tag pretty much. There's some places might be a little bit different, but the residents get more tags, but non-residents can come over, go to a club or go public land, whatever, and shoot whatever they want to shoot. So I can understand changing that but now for locals, to me, because our deer herd is pretty daggone big. It's a lot bigger than it was 20 years ago. I mean, there's deer everywhere. Here, used to, you didn't see no deer, now you see them run over all over the place. But people talk about Iowa wasn't in all places, but Iowa's locals, they can kill up to 3 bucks. Mm-hmm. So definitely 2 if they go gun one and an archer one.
Yep.
And one thing about their public land is whenever the locals there, whenever the gun season comes in, that first gun season, they're going to their public land, they're doing man drives, and they're wearing them out, they're shooting whatever.
Yes, they do.
Yes, everybody talks about, now I'm not talking anything negative about Dan Infall or anything, but he hunts Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. #1 state in the country for Boone and Crockett bucks. Mm-hmm. And they've had a few issues with some disease stuff, but he was up there, he's killed big bucks now, don't get me wrong, but later on when that gun season open, them videos he's got, they're up there doing them man drives, them ARs and stuff, and them bucks ain't making it.
No.
Those, whatever, so they're not as picky as everybody thinks they are.
No, they're not.
So, and
a lot of those Midwestern states that have those short rifle seasons, if you look at the average age of a buck taken in those states, some of them are 1.5, 2.5 years of age.
Yeah.
So they're killing a lot of young bucks.
And Involved, he'll point out that some of their, if a bucket 2-year-old there could be a 130.
Mm-hmm.
A 3-year-old could be a 150. So
Yep.
a little bit difference in their genetics, size of their bodies and like that to ours. So that's kind of cool. But when people start making all these negative comments about all these there's some states it's 1 buck limit and that's it, and that's a little bit different. To me, a part of that is, and I've talked about this before, is up there their deer movement is more weather related than ours. Their deer have to get up and eat when it gets cold because they got to make it through winter. Our deer, during that ice storm and stuff, they're going somewhere and probably they ain't gonna move much. They're going where the food is and they're staying. They don't have to get out and move unless it stays for a long time, and very rare that it does here.
Right. What I've noticed is really, really cold weather will shut deer down here for a few hours. And then after, 18 to 24 hours, they've got to get up and move and find something to eat. But, we don't usually have extended periods of that kind of cold. Now, we did have several days of it this past week. And I saw a pile of deer after day 2, 3, 4.
Right.
And other people did too. But that first day, deer movement was very, very slow.
And, I noticed one thing. We were talking about the food stuff. I went to Kentucky a couple weeks ago, and there on public land they had crop fields, bean fields, corn fields. They had food plots planted with turnips and stuff like that. And you walk around the edge of the woods, and they had honeysuckles. I ain't seen that many honeysuckles down here like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
They had honeysuckles up there, and them suckers were eat to the stem as high as the deer could reach. And you walk out in the cornfield, corn on the ground everywhere, and beans and stuff. And so the honeysuckle thing is something to really think about.
Oh, yeah.
So more as natural browse, like Matt was talking about earlier. So, so what could we do, or people do, the state could do, to help? I know the SOAs is one of the things that's, if you're really serious about some specific trophy hunt that you want to do, the SOAs is one thing to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
they're absolutely. And I'll say this, I'm not in favor of state mandated trophy hunting, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want the state to say, well, we're going to impose antler restrictions statewide or lessen the buck limit for all hunters across the whole state, because I think that should be left up to the hunters. If they want to be trophy hunters, let them be trophy hunters. If they want to shoot the first spike they see, let them shoot the first spike they see. But I do think over time, with our current season structure being as long as it is, and we can carry a rifle for 3 months.
that's mainly private.
Right, yes, that's mainly private.
Public's a little bit different.
Public's a little bit different, so you have more limited opportunity on public ground. And I honestly, some of the older age class bucks that I've seen in the last 8 to 10 years have come from public ground, and especially something like Black Warrior, Bankhead area, Sam Murphy. Some of these larger public land areas are pumping out some really big deer because they have so few days in which to harvest deer, so more deer are making it to those older age classes. And I'm seeing right the opposite of that on private land now, that we've had a couple of years of the extended season and baiting and cell camera usage. I'm starting to see that age class go down a little bit. And I've got quite a few clients now that are telling me, we used to have 4, 5, and 6-year-old bucks on the property to hunt every year. We don't anymore. And it is strictly because of selective harvest of some of those better younger age class deer.
What do you think? And I kind of think this is happening on the public land, and it might maybe more than the private land, that people are passing more 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, do you think after a while the game camera and the bait and stuff, people have done shot enough, say 2 or 3-year-olds, that they're going to start passing more on private?
Well, I think that's natural progression. I mean, typically as hunters, we're excited to get out in the woods and kill deer. And then after we've killed a few deer, we kind of say, well, hey, it might be nice if I shot something a little bigger. That's just kind of the natural progression that a lot of hunters go through. And I think that, once some of these folks kill some nice deer, they might start doing that. But, that's an individual decision. I don't know if it'll happen on a population level.
I don't know, happen in our lifetime. But
Right.
Because, like I say, with the time frame that I read about, it hasn't changed that much as far as the big deer.
Right.
Maybe, some people saying, some good deer, maybe a little bit more, but I didn't go down and research the 140s or anything like that. But to me, from what I've noticed, hunting public land for a long time, I haven't noticed that big a difference with the Monster Bucks.
Right.
So,
Right.
and but, you know, some good ones, but, you know, it's still, it's just, I don't know. Well, we're trying to get better, but my biggest thing is so many people think they know more, you know, and they don't really know, and most of them ain't never been out of the state of Alabama to see
Yeah.
some of the other things, you know.
Well, I'll say this, for the folks out there who think that if we change our seasons, that we're gonna be killing piles of 150 and 60-inch deer like a lot of the Midwestern states, no, we're not. Because, like that bell curve, we've only got a small percentage of deer that can hit those numbers, those antler scores. So if you let every deer live to be 6 years of age, you're looking at 10%, 15% at most, that are even capable of producing that kind of antler growth.
That's a good point. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, been running cameras for a long time, so over 10 years, probably 15 to 20 years. You know, Black Warrior and maybe another one, I'll get some big deer every year on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Okmulgee, you know, used to have some good bucks. I've run camera down there, and I haven't had a camera or buck on camera in 10 years that's over 120.
Right.
And that don't mean anything. I know that they've been some big ones killed under this year. I don't mean anything, but it does not have that, like that bell curve you just said, it does not have the potential as some of the other places in Alabama, and we got counties that's like it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the black belt used to be the top,
Mm-hmm.
but why has that changed as far as that part, you know?
Well, I've got my theories on that, and y'all can agree or disagree with me, but if you look at Alabama's deer herd and how it grew in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it grew tremendously in that black belt region, and deer were growing in an area that they had previously not occupied for several decades. People killed the deer out, so you had an expanding, growing population and basically unlimited resources. You had a lot of agriculture at the time. Now, if you look at the black belt, it's mostly cattle, grazing, and hardwood bottoms or cedar thickets. And so the habitat has changed greatly. The deer herd reached a plateau where it exceeded what the habitat could support, and then it kind of leveled back off. So you don't see the same deer populations and deer numbers that you do in the black belt that you did 30 years ago. Where you do see that now, I feel like, is in northwest Alabama.
Well,
Northwest Alabama is going through that same population boom that they went through 20, 30 years ago. And you're seeing a lot of big deer come out of the Tennessee Valley, northwest Alabama, northeast Alabama, over around Jackson, Cherokee, DeKalb counties.
Jackson County is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, has been one of the top producers probably for a long time, and
Yep.
part of that is the access and rough country, and then
It is.
a lot of the croplands around that. So,
Yep.
but yeah. So what do you think our potential is? Are we gonna get there in my lifetime?
I don't know where you want to go.
I'm happy with what I've half done, but
Yeah. Oh,
some
absolutely.
other people want it to get better fast, but I don't think, like I say, the culling thing, that's impossible.
Right,
Unless
right.
you got a high fence area and shoot everything and start all over.
Yeah,
So,
you're not going to cull your way into having better deer. Not going to happen.
do you think Alabama's gonna just change any buck
I don't know.
limits?
I don't know. I mean, I personally, I'm not in favor of reducing it below 3. That's just me.
I think we got too many deer to do that.
I do too. I feel like, especially you do a podcast on primarily public land. We do a podcast primarily on private land management, because that's the clientele we're trying to reach. We want land managers. So if I'm looking at land managers, if they restrict it even farther, unless they put them on a special program like DMAP and allow them to have special buck tags, I don't feel like on some places you can properly manage a property if you are restricted to less than 3 bucks.
All right, so another question I had some people ask me about clarifying some things. EHD versus CWD, what kind of impact can either one of them have on deer? How much, how bad,
Right.
or how little?
So we just discussed this 2 episodes back on our Southern U podcast.
Oh, really?
Yep, we covered CWD and EHD. 2 completely different diseases. EHD is a virus carried by a biting fly called a midge. Now, us rednecks in Alabama call them no-see-ums. You've heard of no-see-ums?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in bow season, they're terrible. They will wear your hands out, your cheeks, anything that's exposed, you'll get no-see-ums. Well, that is what carries the epizootic hemorrhagic disease in deer. When they get it, they run a very high fever. There's an acute form and a chronic form. They can either die pretty quick, or they can suffer long-term consequences of that disease, or they get over it. And that's the three outcomes. You either die within hours, you die a slow, painful death, or you survive it and build up immunity. Thankfully, in Alabama and most other southern states, our deer herd has built an immunity to that disease, to the more common strains that we had. And if we have a strain come through that they haven't seen in a while, they may not have that natural immunity built up.
Well, so that's something I didn't know. There were different strains of EHD.
There's like 17 or 18 different variants of EHD. It's like the flu. Like, you know, there's several different variants of the flu, or there's several different variants of EHD. And then there's blue tongue. Blue tongue's a very similar virus.
Oh, I thought it was the same.
Well, yeah, but they're slightly different.
Okay, wow.
Yep, slightly different. So that's that, and it affects the southern deer herd to some extent every single year. There's not really anything you can do about it. Some years are worse than others, but you know, if you find deer in July, August, September, dead in creeks, ponds, ditches, that's probably what got them. They're going to water to cool off, and that's where they end up dying. The CWD is a totally different beast. It is a prion disease, so it's a protein that is mutated, and it can cause other proteins in the brain and spinal cord to mutate as well, and it basically just eats holes in your spine, in your brain tissue, and it causes the deer to lose function of all of its bodily processes. So what we know about it is probably less than what we don't know. It's similar to mad cow disease, Crutchfeld-Jacob's disease in humans, same type disease. It is passed through some body fluids. It can be present in the spinal tissue, bones, marrow, that kind of thing. But once it's in the soil, it's there for apparently a very long time.
Do you think, out west and stuff, EHD can actually like decimate a herd?
Absolutely, I've seen it happen.
So, Alabama, it's very rare because they like the immunity thing. You kill them every now and then with their feet kind of wrinkled.
Yeah, you'll see the hooves that are sloughing or cracked and that kind of thing. Yeah.
In Alabama, there's been a couple places like I think Lauderdale to me I've heard is one of the worst, the worst areas where CWD or not CWD EHD has actually hurt them pretty bad at times. So,
right, and see that's another. So, if you get up in Lauderdale County, they restocked deer in Lauderdale County from Wisconsin. The deer that were restocked around Bankhead were from Michigan. Mm-hmm. I have wondered if that's one reason that those, especially the Bankhead population, has never really been able to, what I feel like, boom or hit the potential that I know that forest could carry. The habitat's not bad habitat.
It's getting better.
Right.
I'll give that.
They do a lot of burning. They do some timber thinning outside of the wilderness area. So, the habitat's not too bad. It could support a lot more deer than it does.
The habitat actually used to be better way before the wilderness area stuff. That's a whole different thing. But anyway, it's getting better now. There's more timber management stuff that's actually helping. So, so let's get back to this CWD.
Yeah. So CWD can be transmitted from one deer to the next through contact, through body fluids. When I worked for the state agency, one of the biggest threats was transportation of an infected deer or deer parts from another state into the state of Alabama, which, now we have CWD in Lauderdale County. There's been a couple of new cases up there.
I think we're about like 4 or 5 cases now.
I think a total of 4 or 5. So it doesn't seem to be very prevalent, but it is there. Now, there's been some interesting stuff come out of Mississippi where they have actually detected CWD prions at scrape locations. Yeah. So they're able to detect that disease
in
scrapes and licking branches.
Wow.
And so it's in other areas of Mississippi, but they haven't detected it in actual deer yet. So it's there, but they haven't seen the effects of it.
Now, the chance of it wiping out a herd, is that what everybody says, is minimum.
Right.
Because I've been going to Wyoming for a long time, and I know Wyoming and Colorado was one of the first places, like 1969 or somewhere, one of the first. And they're still hunting, they're
Yep.
still doing whatever.
Right.
There's been no, as far as we know, there's been no transfer from that to humans as far as anything like that. And I
Right.
know somebody's bound to eat a
Yep.
deer with CWD. So
And that's my biggest concern with CWD. Yes, I'm concerned about how it's going to affect populations, but from what we know, it's not the end all be all to a population of deer. It's not as bad as what I feel like it was first portrayed. Now, if there are human health implications in the future, I think that everything changes at that point.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, that would be rough.
it would be very rough. I mean, like even now, I test most deer that we kill because I don't want to knowingly feed something to my family that could potentially harm them.
Right.
You know, that would be an awful death.
Yeah. Hopefully, we won't get to that point. What do you think about deer? Some deer are already being immune or resistant to it or anything like that.
There seems to be, the deer breeders are making those claims that there are certain genetic strains of deer that are resistant to CWD. Now, time will tell, but I've heard talk of it.
Hopefully that's, like best case scenario, I guess,
Mhm.
because I read a study or had somebody tell me that they found a way to kill the prion, but it's like it had been in an enclosed
Right.
space. You had to heat up the ground or whatever, several thousand degrees,
Mhm.
and maybe with some kind of chemical or something. So right now there's no way of naturally or putting anything out or anything to even stop it or get away with it.
You can't treat a wild herd. And now, one thing, and this is highly controversial, one thing that some states have done is reduce the deer herd numbers
Mhm.
in an effort to slow the spread. Now, it will slow the spread because it slows contact between deer. If you've got many, many more deer on the landscape coming in contact with each other, and you know how young bucks will disperse, they may go 8, 10, 12, 20, 30, 40 miles. So if an infected young deer goes to another population of deer, they could potentially carry that disease with them. So if you reduce the number of deer on the landscape, then you can slow the spread. It doesn't stop the spread, it just slows the spread. I don't think you're going to do anything to stop it.
Yeah, I'm kind of that point, but I don't, at my age, I don't think I'll see it to where I live. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Like I say, it's been since in the late '60s. It's been here that long, and they say, like we was talking about Wisconsin earlier. For some reason, or other, Wisconsin seemed to be some kind of transports
Yeah.
from because they draw this big map that they show how it went. So, and I
Yeah.
guess it was because Wisconsin was such a big target area for trophy buck hunting,
Right.
the transporting stuff back and forth. But
Yep.
who knows? And then another thing, you talk about that prion. You've got eagles and different predatory animals and that travel a lot.
Yeah.
They could actually transfer it, and we not really know it.
Right.
And it could jump rivers, and
Mhm.
because they've had some crazy places where it showed up. Like, how in the world did it get all the way down
Right.
here from way up there? So we don't really
Exactly.
know how exactly everything.
And that's what I was saying. There's a lot we don't know about the disease and how it's transferred and the animals that it can be transferred through. Because some animals can actually transfer it but not be affected by it.
Because we train eagles to land in Alabama
Mm-hmm.
to eat on deer. So if they're eating CWD deer, and they come down here, could they be dropping it?
Very,
Who knows?
very likely.
So, which all that's who knows, but
Mhm.
but all we can do is test it, and there's a lot of ways to test your deer. There's all kind of drop off places and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I'm not worried about it that much, but that's just me,
Mhm.
because if I would have thought by now it might have would have jumped, but I don't know. The mad cow thing, to me there was a lot of other stuff going on with that
Right.
than man manipulated or whatever. Which
Yeah.
you got a lot of people say that CWD was manipulated
Mhm.
from
From
scrapies and sheep
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the herd has actually grown so much in Alabama since from, like you say, the way back from the over hunting, dog hunting and all that. But now we're just booming, and we're killing good deer and big deer. But to me, everything that everybody says, or not everybody, but a lot of people, they're trying to be their own biologist or picking on people what they're doing or need to be doing this, but the public land thing, like I say, is what I do, and our public land is so limited that I can't worry. If you're worrying about what everybody you see hunting public land, what they're doing, but you're not worried about all the 1,000 acres around it and what they're doing, you can't control any of that. So so it's hard to pick on people. And to me, public land is for people that can hunt, that can't go get in the high dollar club, can't go to Kentucky, whatever. So they ought to be able to shoot, hunt, whatever they want, and not be punished or ridiculed for it. So
and they're so limited on the number of days. I don't think you're going to over harvest deer on public lands in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, they're good about, some areas are a little bit more controlled than others, and that's fine. That's because of the potential, which is good. So then other ones, we was talking about Sam Murphy. That place has got potential for big bucks, and they kill big bucks, but you can go there and kill 2 a day, and every day, a buck in a doe. So, and they kill 200 or 300 a year.
Yeah.
Every year. They don't never slow down.
Right, and they'll kill 140, 50, and 60. I've seen some 170-inch deer come off that WMA. So, and if you're wanting to trophy hunt in the state of Alabama, I'd look at some of the special opportunity areas in central and south Alabama, because they've got some tremendous hunting. Portland Landing, Cedar Creek, Uchee Creek, all those down that way.
Yeah, they got some big ones.
Yep, they do.
And that's a cool opportunity. My only problem with them, that part is that takes away from one of your tags, and I don't think that should count like that, because it's a special opportunity, and you're generally going to have somebody hunting that time frame anyway. But maybe they'll change that, or they might have some kind of real good reason behind it. But that part I don't really agree with. And I'm not being negative. I don't understand, if it's a special opportunity, why does it got to pull away from your tag?
Yeah. Because
if I hunt Black Warrior or whatever, and kill my 3 bucks, and your better hunting down there is going to be in January. I'm done then. I'm going to go down there and doe hunt. So, I still think I should have the opportunity to buck hunt. Because you're going to have specific guidelines. They got beam length and all that. So, pretty good guidelines. That part I might have a little bit of issue with, but as far as them having them, that's a pretty neat thing. And they're doing that. They kill some nice ones on there.
Oh, absolutely, they have.
So, and it's cool how they picked up some of that land like that. One of my biggest complaints about the state or whoever is we've lost a lot of land that we could have bought. And a lot of it was like somebody just didn't like that land, but it didn't matter because it was land. And crap, they ain't making land no more. So, but we've lost a lot of land. Now you won't buy a big chunk of land.
Right.
It's impossible. So.
And studies have shown over and over and over again, people are willing to drive about a half an hour to 45 minutes to hunt public land. So if you living in an area of the state that don't have something within a half-hour drive, you're probably not going to hunt public land. Very, very few will. And I know some hardcore public land hunters will drive 2, 3, 4 hours to do that. But most hunters, if they don't have access to public land within 30 miles, they're not going to go.
I'll go. But that's just me. But anyway, all right, y'all. This is a pretty good little tutorial or talk about the potential of Alabama. We're never, as far as I know, and from what I get from Matt, we're never going to be like Iowa or Ohio or anywhere like that, because biggest thing is the natural browse stuff.
Our soil fertility is just not what the Midwest is, and some more fertile areas. Like I said, we've got some fertile areas in the state, but generally speaking, we're not as fertile as other places. Now, I would like to see an increase in the amount of mature deer in the population, but even when we do that, if we ever do that, we're still not going to be pumping out high numbers of high-scoring deer.
They're just going to be just more mature deer, basically.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
And that's fine too.
Oh yeah, that's what I tell people all the time. Especially people who are bound by soil fertility. They're like, man, we just, we'd love to be able to produce 130 and 40-inch deer every year. Well, you may not be able to. Grow what you can and have fun shooting it. If you want to shoot mature deer, shoot 115-inch mature deer. If that's all you can grow, have fun doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of aggravating. Is some people are trying to get away from that part of it, the sport of it, the family part of it. It's getting more challenging, or more I'm trying to outdo, or trying to keep up with the Jones, that I'm trying to outdo this. I'm trying to be whoever, and some of this technology stuff that's coming out like you're talking about, I'm getting worried about, and some of the other stuff. So I don't know. It's just, but You know, on public land, we can't bait, you know, not
Right.
supposed to, so, and that, I don't mind the supplemental like you're saying, but the baiting part, I mean, it just, that's just a whole different thing. I'm not, if y'all wanna do it, that's fine. I understand the argument, you know, about food plots, corn piles, acorn piles, or whatever, you know, protein piles, so, and that's, you can argue either way, so, and that's fine. But I want everybody to hunt how they wanna hunt.
Right.
Leave everybody alone, let them hunt how they wanna hunt,
Right.
you know, no matter what kind of equipment, bow, gun, crossbow, slingshot, whatever, I mean, whatever's legal, you know, and then and be happy with everybody with what they do, so.
Yeah, hunters can be their own worst enemy a lot of times, fighting and
Yeah.
bickering about everything. And, you know, I'm all for any regulation or the liberalization of regulations as long as it's not negatively impacting the deer herd. So letting people hunt how they want, you know, overbait, not overbait, I don't care. I don't think bait in and of itself is a bad thing. But I think bait in combination with long seasons and the technology that we now have that we didn't have 20 years ago, I think it can lead in some places to overharvest of certain segments of the deer population. And, you know, at that point in time, it's the state's responsibility to take care of the resource first, so that it's there for hunters to enjoy. And, you know, so I'm not anti-regulation, but I'm also,
Not over.
no, yeah, I mean, you gotta have some compromise on both
Yeah,
sides.
and I think people need to use some common sense in this tent too. I'm gonna be a little bit opposite of some of what he's saying about, I'd rather have more of an opportunity, you know, a longer season and especially on the private land, that way you can control when you hunt or whatever, you still got that time frame, but just don't over abuse it or whatever, so.
Right.
You know, because you're gonna have some people right now. I've heard this talk a lot here lately. It's a velvet hunt in Alabama.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
a velvet hunt. You know, so because Tennessee's having it or whoever's
Yeah.
having it. So, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. So, we appreciate Matt, you know, coming on and talking with us and giving us his input. Go ahead and promote your YouTube channel. He's
Oh, yeah,
the
Southern
sharp
U.
guy's got his own channel. He's got his own business where it's land management stuff.
Habitat First Properties, and me and Jeremy Ferguson with Wildlife Consulting Services, and Taylor McMurtry, we all do Southern U, and it's growing and getting information out to private land managers. It's not just a hunting show or a hunting podcast. That's kind of what it seems like initially, because we opened everything up in the middle of hunting season.
Right.
We're going to be all things land management. We're going to touch on real estate. We're going to touch on other outdoor activities. It's not just going to be all about hunting. It's going to be habitat management, land management. So yes, check us out.
That's one of the most unique things that I like is the way the land management thing is picking up on the natural browse and the habitat and some of the stuff that people wouldn't even think about.
Well, that's why my company, Habitat First, we focus on native vegetation management, whether it be prescribed burning, thinning, fall disking. I mean, look, I plant food plots, love to have food plots, but it's in the native habitat. That's where you're gonna really shine and produce what deer need, turkey need, quail need, rabbits, all of it. Everything benefits from proper vegetation management.
I completely agree. Well, appreciate you, buddy.
Yep, hey,
Thanks.
enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it a lot. Hey, y'all try to get one flat before the season's over. We ain't got long left, you know. And I think they said there's gonna be another crazy cold front coming here another week after
Possibly.
this rain. But anyway, appreciate y'all. Like, share, subscribe, check Matt's website out. You know, his YouTube stuff, and we'll see y'all. Thank y'all for watching this video. Hey, we appreciate y'all's support. Hey, if you don't care, if you haven't got a book yet, Amazon, get a book. We got hard copies now available. It took me a while to get them, but hey, they're on there now. Again, we appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's hard work that helped us to get this done, you know, lifetime achievement. So anyway, you can get one, and thanks again for y'all's support. Subscribe, like, tell your friends, and we'll keep coming up with these videos, so we'll see y'all on the next one.